the blood of freedom-loving Indians begins to flow, will India attain her freedom. Inqilab Zindabad. Azad Hind Zindabad.
A freedom fighter's home. In the heart of Kolkata, still echoing his spirit and courage. 69 years after Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose's death, the icon's struggle for independence still resonates in these halls. Bose's study room, lined with books, pamphlets and journals.
Is no doubt a non-violent struggle. But even a non-violent struggle
recounts his aggressive approach, his emphatic push to fight the colonial rulers.
India is going to be free, and that we in its rule are going to play a part in making India free.
Rooms once buzzing with people, slogans, activity have now gone silent. Cars lie untouched, now just a reminder of a freedom fighter's struggle. But while reports of his death in an air crash is the official line, there are many theories still doing the rounds.
Well, you see, the majority members of the Bose family, we believe that Subhash Bose did not die in that particular air crash on the 18th of August 1945. In fact, there was no air crash at all, so there is no question of dying in an air crash. Subhash Chandra Bose, my grandfather, he did not believe that there was any air crash in Taiwan. And he has told this specifically to my father, Omiyanath Bose.
Questions that remain unanswered. The atmosphere here at Netaji's ancestral home still thick with queries. What really happened to a great freedom fighter? Did he really die in a plane crash? Or did he survive and not tell his tale? It is one of independent India's greatest mysteries.
We are celebrating the 68th year of our independence, but the debate over the mysterious disappearance of the great hero of India's independence movement, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, still remains unresolved. Did he die in the plane crash in 1945? Or was there any bigger conspiracy behind his disappearance? In this week's Inside, we'll be looking into various aspects of the controversies surrounding Netaji.
It's the 68th year of India's independence, a new government in place. A new Prime Minister at the helm. Netaji's contribution to the freedom struggle is unquestionable.
This is an opportunity which is rare in the history of a nation.
Yet the subject of his death has been a tricky one.
I am sure, and I believe you, my countrymen, will agree with me that this is an opportunity which we cannot afford to lose, which India will not lose.
So more than 6 decades after his alleged death in a plane crash, the mystery still haunts the nation.
In 1945, he was still in jail, my father, Subhash Chandra Bose. He got the news of the so-called accident to the plane in which Netaji was traveling, and which was supposed to have crashed at the Taihukui airport, which is the airport of the capital of Taiwan, which is known as Taipei. He was initially very shocked, naturally, sitting in jail. His source of information at that time was only a newspaper which reached him after a few days. Now, he made an entry in the diary that I am deeply shocked. I cannot think of Subhash being no more. But that was all. After he was released in September 1945, he got involved in his political life, but naturally he started to inquire as to what really happened to his brother Subhash. Whether he died in the accident, or if he did not die in the accident, where did he go and where was he at that time?
3 separate committees tried to independently verify the cause of the martyr's death. First, the Shahnawaz Committee tried to establish if Bose actually died in a plane crash. 1956. A number of Japanese army surgeons testified that they actually conducted blood transfusion on a seriously injured Bose, who later succumbed to his injuries. But in 2005, there was an unexpected twist to the mystery. Justice Mukherjee Committee, which was set up in 1999, suggested that Netaji did not die in a crash. Once again, the questions returned, and the closure was shattered.
There are a lot of evidences which will prove that this plane crash was a hoax, because Justice Mukherjee, Mrs. Manoj Mukherjee, in his commission report, he has proved by visiting the airport of Taihuku, by visiting the crematorium of Taihuku or Taiwan, and by visiting the archives of Taiwan, that this plane crash never existed. Actually, in the records of the airport, there is no record of the air crash on the 18th August 1945. Neither in the crematorium there is any record that Subhash Chandra Bose was cremated in that particular crematorium. Justice Mukherjee also went in the archives of Taiwan, where the newspapers of those days, there were microfilms were kept there. In those microfilms, there was no mention of the air crash. On the contrary, there was one news which attracted his attention. The news was that Subhash Chandra Bose is released from the Indian prison. Now, our question is that important to the Taiwan government at that time, or the plane crash?
After years of struggle, conflict and oppression, India was finally a free nation. It had been 2 years since Netaji's alleged death. It is believed that Congress leadership and the government were tense about the impact of Subhash Chandra's possible return to India. They believed that in such a circumstance, it would be impossible for the Congress to stop him from coming to power, given his popularity and connect with the people.
But even a non-violent struggle,
That he did not return relieved some and crushed the others.
Stories about the Great Escape from my father. First of all, he was asked by his Ranga Kaka Babu to come and sit on his bed, and a famous question was put to him, "Amar ekta kaj korte parbe? Can you do some work for me?" And that led to a process of planning for a month and a half, from early December 1940 to the middle of January 1941. And then, of course, on the night of 16-17 January 1941, my father drove his uncle out of the Elgin Road house. My father told me how Netaji offered him coffee because it was an all-night drive, and they discussed the escape of the famous Irish leader De Valera from Lincoln jail while they were on their way. But perhaps the most poignant part of the story was how he bid goodbye to his uncle at Gomo station.
For the freedom fighter's family, it's been an uphill task. The conflicting reports on his death have shattered their faith.
Well, I read the report, and you can interpret this way or that. Justice Mukherjee came to the conclusion that he was in Taiwan on the 18th of August 1945, and then he doesn't know what happened. I mean, he, meaning Justice Mukherjee, doesn't know what happened after that, and he doesn't know because he's just using written evidence. And of course, if you remember what that date meant, on the 15th of August, Japan capitulated to the Allied powers. On the 6th, I think, or 6th and 7th, Hiroshima and Nagasaki were bombed. I mean, those were catastrophic times. The Japanese had never heard the emperor give a radio address, and they had to hear him capitulate. So, I mean, these were not normal days where bureaucrats fill out their forms.
In fact, the latest reports of awarding the icon with the Bharat Ratna has pained the family further.
There is a rumor going on, I don't know how far it is true or not, and probably a few months back, our Honorable Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi had announced that he wants to give Bharat Ratna to Netaji. Now we, from the Bose family, we actually object to this, because we think that, number one, after so many years, what is the need of giving Bharat Ratna to the hero of Asia and to the world icon like Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose? Bharat Ratna, previously when it was introduced, it was not posthumous. And if you remember, in 1992, when Narasimha Rao was the Prime Minister of India, there was a proposal to give Bharat Ratna to Netaji posthumously. Now there was a huge objection from the family members and from the people of India. And in 1997, there is a Supreme Court verdict which clearly stated that as the death mystery of Netaji is not yet solved, and it is not yet proved that how, where and in which place Netaji died, if he has ever died today, the posthumous Bharat Ratna cannot be given to Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose.
The family claims that over 100 secret files on Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose were with various government departments. Netaji's family members and researchers have now threatened to launch a mass movement. If the documents are not declassified and made public at the earliest.
The most astonishing thing as I see it is today that my government in this age and time, 2014, is keeping almost more than 150 files which are secret, and I think in this age and time you should not be keeping files secret. I'm very much in favor of declassification, because unless you declassify these files, you know, the issue will not be resolved, because the problem lies in government secrecy. There's too much of secrecy about this issue, and there are files with the West Bengal government which are classified, there are files with the central government which are classified, and I understand there are files with the foreign countries which are classified. So there are files in Russia which are classified, but my problem, our problem, that we cannot seek a declassification of those files in Russia unless until we declassify our own lot.
With his decade-long research, Dhar is firm on the point that Netaji did not die in an air crash. Dhar also does not rule out the possibility of Bose actually being in USSR after August 1945.
No, there was no plane crash as such. The entire story of the plane crash was actually planted by Netaji and the Japanese intelligence people. So there was no plane crash. He escaped to Russia, and somebody else was committed, somebody else's body was passed off as Netaji. So the ashes which are now lying in Renkoji temple are actually ashes of a Japanese soldier. So there was no plane crash. This man escaped to Russia. My government knows it. The entire issue is very complex and complicated. So, suffice it would be to say that he was in Russia and my government knows about it. So, we must now we should take this opportunity that the new government is in power. As long as Congress party was in power, there was no chance of this issue getting solved.
Some reports also suggest that he was possibly in India in the guise of a holy man.